Hello and welcome to today's bag making class. So today we are making a tote bag, and that is the sketch of the tote bag. We're going to be using foam to shape up the bag, and then we are using the main fabric and the lining fabric for the inside of the bag. These are the measurements that we are going to be using. The measurement of the foam is 8 inches wide by 12 inches in length, and the fabric is going to be 20 inches, so it's going to be 2 inches bigger in width than the foam. So the fabric together with the lining will have to be the same size. So the fabric is 20 inches wide by 14 inches in width. If you want it in centimeters, that is it in centimeters on the side. Okay, so we cut 2 pieces for the main body of the bag and 2 pieces for the lining of the bag. Then we cut 3 pieces of pockets. So 1 piece of the pocket is going to be for the outside here, that is a shaded bit you can see here, and then the other 2 will be for the inside of the bag. So the pocket is also 8 inches by 8 inches. When we hem the top, or we fold the top in and we stitch on the sides and the bottom, we should be dropping it down to about 6.5 or about 7 inches, 6.5, between 6.5 and 7 inches in length, and then about 7 inches in width. So that is it. And then we're going to have some straps. So these are the straps, and these straps are going to go on the side. So it's kind of like the cosmetic bits of the bag. So the straps are going to go on the side, and the straps are 14 inches by 2 inches. 14 inches by 2 inches. You need 2 of them, so one going on this side and the other one going on that side. And then we also need like a short strap. The short strap will be for the bit that will hold the bag up here. At this point, if you have a piece of leather, that will do, but if you do not have leather, you can also use fabric. So if you are using fabric, because we'll be doing the folds, the size is much bigger than the leather. If you're going to be using fabric for that short strap holding on to the handle, that will be 6.25 inches by 4 inches. But if you're going straight onto leather, it should be about 3 inches by 4 inches. That should work for that. And then we go on to the little flap. So the little flap that goes on top of the pocket, that is this bit, is the flap that goes on top of the pocket. All these are cosmetic bits, but may give the bag a unique look. So this little flap, if you are going to be using leather, you cut it straight 2 inches by 3 inches. But if you're going to be using fabric, because you're going to have to fold the ends to make it look beautiful, then we're going to be looking at 5 inches by about 4 inches in length. So 5 inches or 6 inches. 5 inches should do. 5 inches by 4 inches if you are using fabric. So basically these are the parts of the bag that will be coming together to form the whole bag. This will be a handle for the bag, so it's 2 of them, 2 wooden handles, and then these ones will be the base. So they'll be like platforms for the bag to sit on at the bottom of the bag. So those ones come at the base here. Let me kind of draw them in so that you see it, so they'll be like props for the bag to sit on. They are all just decorative bits for it, and that is basically it. Then we also have this handmade tag coming on the background to also be as a cosmetic bag. It would either go at the bottom here or here, depending on where I deem fit when the bag is done. It could be up here or down here, anywhere I'll put it. And then there is also this little bit that will come up here also, so they are just cosmetic bits as well. So this little bit that I'm going to be using as a wrap up on these edges here, and basically we'll be done with our tote bag. So it's a tote bag with a lot of characters, and we hope to have a good outcome in the end. Let's dive in. Okay, so the actual foam, like I said earlier on, is 18 inches by 12 inches, and I cut my fabric to a size of 20 inches by 14 inches. I left 1 inch all around the foam. just enough to give me enough working space. So I have my fabric, my main fabric. This is going to be my main fabric, and that is going to be my lining fabric, and this is my foam. But I'm going to take the foam away and just work with the fabric and come back to it. What I'm going to do now is to stitch 1 inch of a seam allowance just at the top of the bag. So I'm going to do that and come now. What I'm going to do now is I'll put the right side of the fabrics together and be stitching on the wrong side. So this is it. This is the right side of my lining. This is the wrong side. Okay, so this is my right side of my fabric. I'm going to turn it to be facing the right side of the lining. That is what is called right on right. So both right sides are together, which is what I have done, and I'm going to stitch on the wrong side. I am stitching at half of an inch, at 1 inch. I'm stitching at 1 inch. So I'm going to run a straight stitch at 1 inch, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so I have them stitched together, my lining and my fabric stitched together. As you can see, I've stitched it together only at the top, and I'm going to press my seam allowance open. So the next bit is to fix the inside pockets for both sides. And if you remember, the inside pocket was 8 by 8 inches, so one of the pockets is going to have to go somewhere here in the center. But I'm going to first at the top fold 1/4 of an inch and then 1/2 of an inch to finish up the top of my pocket before we can carry on. So I'm going to put in some pins and then run a stitch on it. So I've stitched the top of my pocket. As you can see, I did the fold and then I've top stitched it. We need to figure out where the center of the bag is so that we can place it there. So as usual, you're going to have to fold the bag into 2 like this, and where we see the crease is where we're going to place our bag. So my crease is somewhere here, if you can see that, and I'll be placing my pocket here. I think so. The bottom is here. From here to here, I think that should be enough. So if you want the measurement, I'm going to be leaving from the top to the bottom. That will be around, let me take the measurement. So let's say around 3.75 from the top measurement of the bag to where the pocket is going to start from is about 3.75 is where it's going to start. Okay, so as we know, I've gone ahead to iron the sides of the pockets that I want to be stitching now. So I'm stitching all over here, here and here onto the lining of the bag. So just the lining. So I'm going to lift up just the lining like that. But first of all, let's find the center of the bag, exactly where we want to put the pocket. So if you fold the bag into 2 like that, you find the center of the bag. Okay, and I'm going to set it from the top to where the pocket begins. That is going to be about 3.75 inches. So my bag is going to begin from there, but before that, I'm going to also put my pocket into 2 and find the center of it and just match the center lines so that I'm sure I'm setting them properly. So as you can see, I've just matched the lines of the fold. You get it, and then I'll just pin them in place before I go to the machine to stitch it down. So my stitch is only going to run on the lining and nothing else. So I'm going to stitch it for both bags and then come back to show it to you. Alright, here, so the pockets have been stitched, as you can see. The next thing is to stitch the handles in before we join the sides. So I'm going to be holding the handles with the leather, and it's going to go like this, and hopefully I'll have enough to stitch it. So it's going to go like this into the bag. I'm going to find the center of the bag, find the center of the bag, make a crease there so I know where the line is, and then also find the center of the leather I'm using to set the I know the center is about here. I'll put the marking in. Okay, so if I match it here and here, then I'm going to have to open up my bag from here to here so that I can push the seam in, and then I can push the leather in and then go in and stitch it. So this is, I'm going to have to take some stitches out. Okay, so that should be enough. That should be enough to accommodate the length of the leather. So I'm going to go in like that. I'm setting it like this. Going to wrap my leather around it. Hopefully I'll be able to catch the stitch on like that. The good thing is to put a stitch into this first and then come and push it into the bag. So I'm going to run a stitch first and then come back to it. So I've been able to stitch the leather holding the handle. I'm going to push it in like that and then pick it up from inside here. Okay, pick it up from inside here and then run the stitch again on top of it. So then we will have it stuck into it like that. I'm going to do that and come back. So I've centered my handle, as you can see, between the markings we did. I'm going to just push it further a little bit and then use a needle and a thread to hand stitch it in, because at this point trying to use the machine will be a bit difficult. So I'm just going to put some pins in place to make sure that it stays in the position that I want it to, and then just use a hand needle and a thread to just stitch this little bit in. I'll do that for both of them and bring it back here. As you can see, both bag handles have been stitched in. The next thing is to place the outside pocket over here and then stitch the straps on the sides, just to give it some character. Basically that is it. So stitch the sides, the straps on it, and then get our tag to come here or here, depending on where we want it to go, or even in the middle with our handmade tag onto it. So I'm left to do all these bits and then I'll bring it back to you. So I'm first going to stitch my pocket, try to hem this in like I did with the inner pocket. Okay, so I went ahead to stitch in the front pocket. I only stitched it onto the main fabric, so I didn't stitch it onto, just the main fabric was what I stitched the front pockets on. The next step we're going to go on to is to stitch the straps onto the side. Now I gave the length of the straps earlier on, so how to fold the straps in is you first put the straps into one fold like that to be able to create a crease in the middle of the straps. Then you fold one end to meet the line you just creased, and then another one to meet the line you just creased. You iron it down flat, and then I'm going to overlap it here, about 1/4 of an inch overlap, and run a stitch down on this side and on that side. Okay, you realize that it's a bit longer than the bag at this point. So when I finish stitching from here all the way down and then all the way down, running 2 stitches, one on this side, one on that side. When I finish stitching in them all in, I will open this place up with my seam ripper, just the length I need, and push the end of the strap into the bag and stitch it from behind to hold it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and then stitch both straps down, just overlapping it at 1/4 of an inch or even at the 1/8 of an inch, depending on you, but I'll go for 1/4 and then stitch them down and come back with what I've done. Okay, so at this point what we're left to do is to put a flap on the pocket. You can choose to stitch your flap onto the main body of the bag and then make a slit into your flap and then with a bottom so that you can cover it, or you can just use this little flap as a decorative piece, and that is what I'm going for I want to use it as a decorative piece, and then put some crystals on it. So this is the look I'm going for this class, my handmade tag. So I'm going to apply some glue at the back here, some epoxy glue at the back here, and then stick them all in place, and then we take it from there. I have my tag and my flap all glued in place. The next step is to sandwich the foam in between the main fabric and the lining fabric, and this is how I'm going to do it. So you see, I'm going to part our seam allowance open and then lay the foam inside it like that, and bring it back close into it. I'm going to make sure that my foam is pushed so that there is no space hanging in at the top. So I'll use my pegs to hold on to my foam in place. Now make sure that when you put your foam in place, you still have your 1 inch allowance on the sides and at the bottom, because that is what you're going to be stitching on. And remember, we are doing a French seam. I'm going to take it away, put it on the side, and do the same for the other part as well. Then we can stitch it together using our French seam on the sides. Okay, so I have both bags matching. You can see that the top is matching, the handles are matching, the sides are also matching. I'm going to trim this down a little bit just so that the sides are all matching, because everything has to match. So I'll trim it down a little bit so that the sides are matching. Okay, then we can start stitching them together. So I'll run a stitch on the side at the bottom, and then on the side, on 3 sides, here, the opposite side, and at the bottom, and then I'll bring it back to show you what the next step is. The first stitch I'm going to be running is 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 centimeter. So it's about 1/2 centimeter will be my first seam that I'll be running along. So I'll do that all around the 3 sides, and I'll bring it back. Okay, so as you can see, I've put in my first seam. You always, for the French seam, you always stitch on the right side first, then you turn it over and stitch the next one on the inside, okay, because we want to finish it. So this is the seam finish we chose to use. That's the French seam. As you can see here, I've done it. I'm going to grade this down some more so that my seam allowance will be about 1/8 of an inch, because we don't want it to be showing inside when we turn it in and do our second stitch. If your seam is the allowance is too big, it ends up showing, penetrating through your second seam when you do it. So I'm going to grade this down some more to about 1/4 of an inch, and then go and give the bag a press before we do our final stitch, because once that one goes in, it will be difficult to iron the bag out. And because this is fabric, a few places are a bit crumpled, and then I need to iron it before we actually complete the bag. So I've graded it down to about this size, so you can see. I'll turn it over and do my last stitch there. Okay, so the next step before I turn it in and then do my final stitch, what I've done is to keep some pins in place. So I have pinned this together with the foam in front. I'm going to be doing the same for the back. The reason why we are doing that is we don't want the foam to shift whilst we do our seam, French seam. So we want it to still stay in place. So when you put some pins in place to hold the fabric in the front together with the foam, then it keeps it in place and the foam does not shift. Okay, so I'll do that to the front of the bag and then repeat the same for the back as well. So I know that my foam is not going to shift, because I don't want any space around the foam when I've finished stitching. I want to be able to catch all of it. So I've done the front and I have some pegs holding the top here. I also have some holding the bottom. I'm going to flip it over and put some pins in place to hold the foam to the main fabric so that it doesn't shift in the back and there's no space around it so that it will be moving around. That is not what we want. Then now I'm going to try and turn it inside out. Okay, so if you knock it from the bottom here and push it in, because it's foam, it's malleable, it allows you to handle it anyhow you want it. So I'm turning it inside out, nearly there, and then I'll stitch on the sides. So I'm going to try to push. So this is where it's very important to have your pins in place, because if you don't do that while you are turning it, you could shift the foam, and we don't want that. So I just need something to actually push this corner out properly. So you can see this is where I'm going to be stitching the foam. You can see that is where I'm going to be stitching. I'm going to make sure that all the ends are out. This little bit I have to try and push it from inside to get all the ends out properly, and then I'll sew all the way around it, and then we go on to the next step. So with the help of your scissors, you can push the corners out. If you have a loop turner tool, you can use it. So I will use the scissors to, as you can see, I'll use the scissors to actually get all these ends out as well. Oh, I know they are out. Then we can go ahead and do our stitching. So I'm going to put some pegs in place. So I'm going to stitch all the way around it, and then I'll bring it back. Okay, so I've stitched all round. So this is the French seam. As you can see, the inside is finished beautifully, no fraying, and then this is the out bit of it. But I'm going to do the bottom part of the bag, like the bottom part, give it a stand. And what you do is that you line this seam line to the bottom here. So I'm going to make sure that it's lining up. You know, from the inside, when I look at it, I should be able to line them up together so I can see that it's lined up. And I want the base to be 4 inches in length. So I'm going to go in here about 2 inches. So from here, this point to this point, I'm going to measure out 2 inches. Okay, so you first measure from here, the bottom here, the tip here, inside 2 inches. Then you come across and then you take it from there. So I'm coming across and I want it to be 4 inches in total. So going this way is 2 inches, coming this way should also be 2 inches. So I have my base 4 inches. Okay, now I'm going to cut it at about leaving about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'll do a zigzag edge at this bit if it's going to allow me to do a zigzag edge finish here, and do the same on this side as well. Okay, so I was able to run a zigzag edge to finish this seam allowance. I'm going to get all my pins out and turn the bag inside out. Then we take it from there. Okay, so that is the inside of the bag. That is the whole bag. As you can see, that is the base of the bag. I'll put some pins and then get them out as well. That is our bag. On all sides. So the next thing I want to do is give my bag some props to stand on. And I've measured, I used space from here to the dot is 1 centimeter, and from this seam to this bit is 1.5 inches. So I transfer the dots on 4 sides. I'm just going to punch a hole in here and then push the legs in there, and then from inside just try and fit this on top of it and then spread it out. So let's get it on that. So I made a hole and then I pushed it in. I'm going to come in from here. Is, if you can see it, it's come out of here. Put this bit on top of it and then spread the legs apart. I want to give you a close shot so that you see exactly what is going on in there. So that is it. I'm going to do it for the rest and then we take it from there. So all the 4 props are fixed, as you can see, like that. They're all fixed. I want to give my bag a base so that it can, you know, square up properly. Okay, so here is it. I want to give the bag a base. So I cut a cardboard size, just the same size as the base. And then I put a sleeve on it. I'm going to put it into the bag so that it lies flat inside the bag, and it also hides the prop from coming inside, and this will give it a firm stand at the bottom. So we've come to the end of today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up, a like, and a share. What is our bag? That can be seen from all sides. And then on the bottom as well. And then on the inside. Many thanks for watching and have a lovely day. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and then share if you enjoyed today's lesson. Have a lovely day. Bye.